I will be the pretty, pretty princess, and no one can stop me. Hello, folks. Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, here for another Legacy video. And today, Samuel has asked me to play with a mono-white Monarch deck list. So let's go back in time for a minute to I think August of 2016. I think it was. Conspiracy Take the Crown comes out, and this was one of those like designed for multiplayer sets. And the designed for multiplayer sets have a little bit of a tendency of having really cool, well-designed mechanics for multiplayer that don't transfer over well to a competitive 1v1 format. And Monarch was one of those mechanics. In kind of that 2016-2017 stretch, we see Death and Taxes decks having Palace Jailer as a Recruiter of the Guard target that is both a removal spell and a source of card advantage. And the deck just absolutely takes off and has sort of a golden age. And other decks start trying to play this as well. Things like a blue-white Stoneblade or Miracles try slotting this in. And essentially, if you can protect the queen and hold the monarch status, you have a one-sided Howling Mine that is pretty damn hard to beat, especially when it takes a creature out on the way in. Now, Monarch has been outclassed in Legacy over the past couple of years since threats have just become better with things like Minsk and Boo, 4th Aerlinga's Murktide Regent, just making the turtle up strategy not quite as strong. And of course, we got the initiative, which was kind of the better version of Monarch for our standards, because instead of just drawing you cards, the initiative dungeon, the Undercity, just wins the game. Why don't we take a look at the deck list that Samuel originally submitted? I did some polishing of this one because I think there's some fundamental problems with it. So the general idea was to be a Seasoned Dungeoneer plus Palace Jailer Turtle Up deck list. And Suppression Field alongside Ghostly Prison were supposed to tax your opponent in a way that limits their ability to take the Monarch status. But I think Suppression Field and Ghostly Prison are just like fully power crept out of Legacy at this point. I don't think they're good ideas. And essentially it comes back to Murktide Regent, right? So like if you are playing in, I don't know, like 2014 Legacy, whenever like Young Pyromancer came out, whatever core set that was. Someone's going to tell me it was like 2012 and I'm going to feel so old. And your opponent is trying to go wide of you with a large number of small creatures. This card is very, very strong, and it might stop 10 points of damage per turn. But right now in the format, the only thing that's really doing that is 4th Aerlingas. So Ghostly Prison is kind of a card that's strong against that. But when you start thinking about like the Uro-sized creatures, the Murktide Regent-sized creatures, Patchwork Automatons, Kappa Cannoneers, you get the idea. The average power and toughness of creatures in Legacy has just gone up a lot over time, meaning that Ghostly Prison effects are not as strong as they used to be. And Suppression Field is an incredibly high variance card, and it's very bad when you're on the draw. So when your opponent is on the play and just goes like fetch, Valk, Dragon's Rage, Channeler, and effectively already has a 3/3 in play, if Suppression Field is your first play, you are just falling further behind. So fundamentally, for current Legacy, I think what we have to do is eliminate these prison pieces or something else that is going to have a higher impact in the current format. So this is my rebuild of the deck list, and you'll notice that I didn't really change a lot. I think the core of the deck is quite strong. There were kind of two major fundamental changes that I made. Number one was cutting a couple of lands for some Lotus Petals. The way the deck was originally built, I think Chrome Mox was just very, very, very clearly the best card in the deck, and I think we need more Chrome Mox, and we can't play 8 Chrome Moxes, not legally anyway. So that's where Lotus Petal comes in. Lotus Petal is going to help us accelerate into these 3-drop lock pieces, as well as give additional consistency at getting other lock pieces on turn 1. Also, as we know from other initiative decks in the format, just like having those Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal, Seasoned Dungeoneer, or in our case, Palace Jailer openers, can be a way to spiral the game. This does mean that the deck is about, or literally in this case, 50% mana. You can skimp more on land than this. I think you can go to 16 traditional lands plus 2 Ameria's Calls, but that's the configuration that you can do if you're mostly maxing out on 3-drops plus Seasoned Dungeoneer. Like, if I am playing a bunch of, say, elite spellbinders in these slots, and my curve is a little bit lower, I think, like, going down another land or two is safe. But at 8 4-drops, plus occasionally wanting to hardcast Solitude, I think you have to just err a little bit on the side of caution as far as the lands go. The other fundamental change I made was swapping Suppression Field for Leonin Arbiter. Those are different cards, but they occupy a similar niche in that it is a turn 1 or 2 taxation piece, but this one comes attached with a body. And in an Orcish Bowmaster world, just having an extra 2/2 in play that can keep you from losing the Monarch or Initiative seems like a really big deal. So we've cut, like 7 or 8 enchantments from the deck list to play a little bit of additional removal. Again, protecting the Monarch and the Initiative is a really big deal. A few more bodies that are also taxing, and then Lotus Petal. That's kind of the fundamental shift that I did. Now, once you remove Suppression Field from the deck, which taxes all activated abilities, Fairy becomes a reasonable card to play. The original deck had a mix of Rest in Peace and Containment Priest. This is a deck that's probably going to be pretty good against decks like Reanimator as long as you make it out of the initial turn cycles. So I think playing some Fairies is just a legit way to do that. I'm going to keep a couple copies of Rest in Peace. It is a powerful card against Uro decks or against Delver decks. I think it's reasonable to be playing those. But the other big fundamental shift I did was Swords to Plowshares. So in matchups where our opponent is very creature heavy, like Delver, we'll board out Chalice of the Void and board in Swords to Plowshares. And then with Swords, Solitude, Palace Jailer, Touch the Spirit Realm, we are just going to have a very high critical density of removal spells to keep us from losing our unfair and busted mechanics. Beyond that, I lowered the average CMC of the Hate versus combo. We're going to play 1 Thalia, 1 Canonist instead of a couple of Trinispheres. And instead of a whole bunch of Cathar Commandos, we're going to do a split of Lorens and Cathar Commandos. I think that's just better. And then the good old Court of Grace that was in the main deck, I think just has to get bumped to the sideboard. It is a very, very, very powerful card when it works. But against combo, it's hard to invest mana in this without dying. Against aggro decks, you sometimes can't play this card when you're behind. So this is something that I want to have access to for control matchups, but I don't think is necessarily safe for game 1. Last thing I want to say here, I'm probably going to get a lot of questions like, why not Thalia? X1 creatures in the main deck in this current metagame are not great. That's why I haven't slotted in Thalia and Elite Spellbinder, despite the fact that they would fit, generally speaking, into this shell. Oh, and when you cut Suppression Field, a Ganjo also becomes a relatively good flex land. Yeah, so I think that's what I have to say here. If you like what you see today and you need to buy any cards for it, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your next order. And, folks, let's battle. All right. We have a really good opening hand here. I think I recognize this opponent. I think they're a combo player. Doomsday sounds right to me. Oh, this turn got really hard to play. Maybe start with a Dazeable Chrome Mox. If I make the hard call that my opponent is Doomsday, putting this under there is pretty good. I think I am comfortable making that hard call. I don't think I give up a second card to Daze. I think I am going to attempt Archon as my first play. We get a Brainstorm in response. If Archon resolves, I just, like, can't lose next turn, because, like, my opponent can't Dark Ritual or Lotus Petal. I get punished for not playing around Daze. It's okay. Like, if my stuff gets countered, but then I just, like, Anointed Peacekeeper on Thassa's Oracle or Doomsday, I think I'm going to be okay. Sure. Palace Jailer is so far down the list of cards that I would want to play in this game that I am just going to imprint that under a Chrome Mox where I wasn't willing to give up an Anointed Peacekeeper or an Archon to put it under there. Well, we obviously get the fetch in response. Scrubland. Sure. We will just name Doomsday, though, I think. Actually, if my opponent has Dark Ritual already, maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe I just name the Thassa's Oracle that is the win condition. Just increase the cost of Thassa's Oracle twice, call it a game. Usually I'm preemptively stopping a Doomsday, but like making the Doomsday cost 2 more doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense here. Take your cards. Sure. Bash in for 3. Opponent's at 13. Let's play an Anointed Peacekeeper again. Force of Will, pitching the Fluster. That's fine. And we'll go ahead and shut off Dark Ritual with Chalice. I've got a really good clock here. Yep. Okay, so Canonist is fine. Thalia is fine. I might end up just lowering my curve by playing some other creatures. Like, this is not a Solitude or Palace Jailer matchup. The graveyard, unfortunately, isn't really relevant here. So I think Solitude is the worst card in my deck. We're going to get 2 more hatebears, just an aggressive 3/1, and a filler creature. Then I have to, like, think, is Touch the Spirit Realm better than Lauren? Touch the Spirit Realm can be channeled to blink Seasoned Dungeoneer, Palace Jailer, save a creature from removal, so I'm not sure that Touch the Spirit Realm is explicitly bad. I am going to junk 1 Palace Jailer for 1 creature that can attack a turn earlier. It's possible Court of Grace is better than 1 Palace Jailer, but I'm going to say no. At the end of the day, like, my opponent can occasionally have some sideboard juke creatures, and I want to be able to respect those. This is a medium quality opening hand that I think I am going to keep. It just gets to attempt turn 1 Canonist, which stops a lot of the Dark Ritual-based lines, and I'm okay with that. The kind of fundamental issue here is that using this Lotus Petal for Canonist means that I don't play a 4-drop on turn 2. We're hoping my next draw step delivers a 3-drop or a 2-drop. We lose that war. Generally speaking, I think the game where we're on the draw is going to be a little bit tough. Because, like, some portion of the time my opponent can just, like, turn 1 Dark Ritual Doomsday or do that on turn 2 as well, so that's a thing. This gives me my relevant spells next turn. I guess we'll play this one tapped and pass the turn. Unfortunately, like, these aren't the cards that I want to be playing in the matchup. Like, unless I do a Seasoned Dungeoneer on, like, turn 1 or something, like, that's a different beast. But I guess I'm glad my opponent is cantripping rather than just casting the card that kills me. They topped those cards. That's really damn good. I think I play that around double days. I think that's how valuable this card is. Because Doomsday is a search. Now, my opponent did not fetch there, so they really like the card that's on top of their library. A Prismatic Ending. Sure. Now they get to fetch. Still no Dark Ritual Doomsday. Like, good news for Phil fans. And a new fetch land. So with 6 mana, I can just play Seasoned Dungeoneer and immediately blink it. It's a little awkward, because to do that, I need to commit to City of Traders immediately. But I think it's really good. So, like, we'll just do this, take the initiative, get a land, and immediately grow this. And then this makes me much better versus a pass the turn Doomsday line. I think it makes pass the turn Doomsday lines not work, right? My opponent goes to like 9, and then I just have 10 damage. So this is presenting a lethal attack. My opponent has 5 mana though, so like it is very possible to do like a Doomsday and win in the same turn line here. Alright, let's take a look at that old Exile Zone. I imagine my opponent just like, oh, okay, we can do that line, sure. This is a consider pile. So my opponent cracks LAD in response to get their 3 mana to effectively use this like Black Lotus. Then they just like cast a cantrip and cast their Thassa's Oracle. And they've done this in a way that plays around Solitude, which I've boarded out anyway, because I think the number of times that Solitude saves your butt is pretty low. I think the number of times that Palace Jailer drawing me an extra card is more relevant than that is higher. A single Chrome Mox says my only mana source is not going to do it here. This is suboptimal, just full stop. But I don't think I can keep a hand or mulligan a hand that can attempt a turn 1 Archon. It is just too much of a beating in the instances where it does work. But we will be a bit reliant on the top of the deck, assuming that this gets Force of Willed. Oh, it does not get Force of Willed. Hell yeah. In which case this hand is pretty respectable. Oh, that Lauren is really good. Just getting to blow up that Lotus Petal is essentially a time walk. And we can't even get dazed here, because this is not an island right now. A Swords to Plowshares. That is definitely frustrating. Now this doesn't have a target, so we've just got a 2/1 Vigilant creature in play. I would say we are no longer favored to win this one. I think my opponent is just going to have too much time. Like, I can top deck a Leonin Arbiter or a Thalia or something and get this show on the road. But I'm not expecting to win from here. Fingers crossed, though. A Teferi. Well, the good news is I can flash in another creature. And then I can end up killing this Teferi. Ooh, that's bad. So this resolves. Do I draw a card with Lauren? It is a symmetrical card draw. I have so much better cards that I can play here, so I think I do draw a card. Seasoned Dungeoneer is unfortunately not one of them, though. Maybe it is now that I do that Lotus Petal. This means that Seasoned Dungeoneer is dazable. I don't think I get to play around that, though. Like, this is so much of a better effect versus Doomsday. Pass the turn Doomsday lines, specifically. Already played my land drop. And Teferi is not going to race Seasoned Dungeoneer, so there's going to need to be another Swords to Plowshares type card, which is good. There is a very real question of whether or not I do go to Forge. Like, going to Forge is much worse against the Swords to Plowshare effect, but much better versus Doomsday, which is the thing that is beating me, so damn it. Archon is great. Very, very happy with that. So I'll just fetch something in response. Sorcery speed. Knight's Whisper coming in at instant speed. So trap is now a problem for my opponent. My opponent is going to need to Doomsday and win in the same turn, which is tough with an Archon in play. So this hits my opponent for a bunch. I unfortunately probably need to attack the Teferi so that my opponent can't bounce the Archon out of play. Fucking stop it with these Swords to Plowshares. That's the third one. Alright. I'll play a Lauren. The Teferi can just bounce this. And now that I'm past trap, a Doomsday past the turn line is viable again, because my opponent can go to 3 and then take 2 in combat. Or just bounce the Lauren out of play. Alright, we're going. Here it is. So my opponent could build their Doomsday pile and then draw a card with Teferi. There is a Brainstorm. And I am presuming that I am now dead. This just gets like a Lotus Puddle to cast the Thassa's Oracle and 2 Cyclers. Sure. Or 2 Lotus Petals. 1 Lotus Petal. An LED. Consider, sure. There's an Edge of Autumn cycle. And we unfortunately go down GG.
Today's video is sponsored by Eminence Gaming. Their command tower software that they use to run events is awesome, and in January, I'm going to be attending another one of their events, The Boil, in Atlanta at Charlie's Collectible Show, which is, no joke, one of the coolest venues that I've ever played at. If you are interested in some CEDH and or meeting me, consider checking it out.
So with this opening hand, I could go all in on a Leonin Arbiter and have just 1 mana source left in play. I don't think I want to do that. Not on a 7 anyway. This is fine. I think I'm going to throw back the second Chrome Mox. My deck is like half mana. I think I'm just going to assume that I draw a land or mana source within the next 2 turns. Wasteland will be incredibly good against what I'm doing. But I think leading on Chalice is better than leading on Seasoned Dungeoneer or Palace Jailer. Despite the fact that Chalice is probably the worst it's been in years, it's still Chalice of the Void. It still steals games of Legacy. Either by invalidating a deck or by stopping clutch removal spells like Swords to Plowshares. Oh no, it is an Ancient Tomb Mirror, in which case I have time walked myself by playing Chalice. Alright, what color are you? Presumably red. The Broadside decks and Sticker Goblin decks are just everywhere right now. They're very good. I am correct in my evaluation. Goblin Matron. Sure. Getting a Sticker Goblin. Well, Archon of Emeria is a hell of a fucking draw here. That stops the busted Sticker Goblin stuff from happening. So the next question is, do I need a removal spell in the form of Palace Jailer? Or do I just want 2 Seasoned Dungeoneers? I think it's very easy for my opponent to go wide of what I'm doing, and this also requires white, whereas Seasoned Dungeoneer is castable off of 5 more lands, 3 Ancient Tombs, 2 City of Traders. So I think I'm into this. I think my opponent's deck is a faster version of my deck. Let's hope that my higher density of removal and evasive creatures end up being good. Fuck this guy. Who told everyone this card was good? We're all looking for this person. Yeah, and the Matron gets thrown at my Archon, and that turns Sticker Goblin back on. Fuck. My opponent just plays Sticker Goblin, throws it at Seasoned Dungeoneer, and then becomes the Monarch. This sucks. This super sucks. I'm playing this, hoping that my second Seasoned Dungeoneer can do something cool. But I think my opponent plays this one as long as they do something reasonable off the Sticker Goblin mana. Here it comes. That's the high roll as well. I'm dead. Maybe literally this turn. Alright, there's Muxus. Muxus hits another Sticker Goblin. Honestly, could have been worse. But yeah, but my opponent just throws one of these sticker goblins at Seasoned Dungeoneer. And then next turn, I am dead on board to Muxus. And Seasoned Dungeoneer doesn't save me. I'm also just dead to this shit, right? Like, forge this, 6 damage in combat, plus, like, trap afterwards, and throwing shit. Yeah, too fast. 4 Swords to Plowshares in. Canonist is reasonable here. I may end up playing some extra bodies. So essentially, I need to replace my 4 Chalice of the Voids immediately. Those become the 4 Swords to Plowshares. Arbiter still has text. Palace Jailer is a little rough. Like, it's so easy for my opponent to go wide with like Goblin Rebel Masters and Battlecry Goblins. I probably still have to keep some number of them. I think I'm going to sub for 1 Canonist to help in the early game. Alia's not crazy as a just first strike creature, but it does not spark joy. I don't think this is good enough. I think I would, yikes, like to present a lock piece or a card of my own on turn 1, if at all possible. This is 5 cards. Plains, Chrome Box, Imprint, Arbiter, keep next land. This in some capacity is a keep. I think I'm relying on my deck being 50% mana and pitching the next land. And trying to curve Arbiter into Peacekeeper. Arbiter is not necessarily good enough. It just shuts off Goblin Matron. Like, this is not great. I'm on a multi-5 with a suboptimal hand. I'm not going to say we're dead in the water, but I do not expect to win this one, even if I top deck well. That said, I don't think just keeping a Swords to Plowshares hand to attempt to fizzle a Namesticker Goblin ends up winning me the game. I think it just delays the game. And if my follow-up is a turn 4 play, I don't think that's getting there. Sure. Great. Yeah, pretty sure we can just concede here. But wait, there's more. Okay, they're just imprinting now while they can. So of these things, I probably want to trade with Warchief and just take 4. But the broadside just gets to obliterate all my creatures forever. And especially if my opponent plays a follow-up 3-drop, I think I just concede. Broadside is just too good against this deck. Crater Maker. Yeah, you could blow up my Chrome Box and just win the game on the spot, I think. Yeah. I am conceding the game unless my next draw is a soul land. I guess I could wait one more draw, like... No, they could just fucking pay the 2. Fuck, alright, yeah. GG's.
Today's video is sponsored by moxfield.com, which is just the best place to keep your online deck lists. And one of the things that I love about them is that you can use it to keep track of what cards you do and don't have for a deck. So for example, in this deck list, I have all of the cards, so there are nice blue bubbles filled in here, and that's automatically ported over to your collection tab, where you can see exactly what cards you do and don't have.
I have kept a reasonable opening hand here. I wish I was on the play. My hand is very redundant against a Thoughtseize effect. Chalice gets slammed. Okay, hold on now. Oh, they're just gonna go. Wow. 4 mana. Beseech. I am, I think, deterministically dead to that. Beseech, for Gaia's Will, for LED, Crack, Dark Ritual, from Mox. And then they just Beseech for Tendrils. That is disappointing, because if my opponent doesn't turn 1 me, I just always have Land and Arbiter on turn 1 to not die to this. Hey, Livy. We have really good sideboard options versus this deck, though. Like, I could board in up to 10 cards. I won't board in that many, but I could. So, Jailer out. Solitude out. touch the spirit realm out. Actually, this is 10. Okay. I can think about whether or not Seasoned Engineer is better than Palace Jailer. I think the one that kills my opponent faster is good. Like, I'm going to keep my opening hand based on Hate Bears and interaction. I think the follow-up, just Lava Axe style card to the face is good. All right. So, yeah, this hand's insane, right? So just turn 1, Lotus Petal, Plains, Chalice on 0, and Aethersworn Canonist. Turn 2, Archon. Fuck you. It is rather rude. Chalice on 0, and Canonist. So my opponent had their crazy hand. Now I get my crazy hand. And then maybe we'll play fair in game 3. Hopefully not, though. Sure. Oh, cool. Ancient Tomb is actively good for me. It means that I can not lose City of Traders to play Seasoned Dungeoneer another turn down the line. And I don't think the life loss from Ancient Tomb is particularly relevant with this much hate in play. I don't really want another Ancient Tomb, but it's whatever. What is that, 14? And this is another reason to keep Seasoned Dungeoneer in over Palace Jailer. Like, Palace Jailer would not be castable. Grab that Plains. Opponent has not succeeded in removing any of these things from play. The fetch land entering tapped is insult to injury, and I think we'll call that good. As a side note, I can consider Touch the Spirit Realm to protect bears, but since the bears come back at the beginning of the next end step, it often doesn't work right if my opponent is just trying to remove something at my end of turn. So, this is not a bad hand. If my opponent thought seizes me and takes my Crumb Box, I don't have a turn 1 play. But if I like mulligan to a fairy, if my opponent thought seizes me anyway, like I still lose, I think I'll just keep this. Let's see what happens. It is Thoughtseize. I have lost the Thalia. I guess that means I get to shut off the graveyard. That's good. But it's not game winning. We're going to get rid of one of the Laurens that they've already seen. So note that my opponent can just like beseech for a Song of Creation to get around this sort of stuff that I've done. This probably buys me time to find another hate bear, though. Hell yeah, deck. Thank you. I do appreciate this follow-up. We get the fetch in response. And we'll kind of see what, if anything, my opponent does this turn. I wouldn't be surprised to, like, see a removal spell used on one of these two. Oh, not this time. Fantastic. Amaria's Call is not what I am looking for. I don't think I even play that because I have 4 mana right now for my most expensive cards. Actually, that's not true, right? Because I just play Lauren, don't destroy anything. Play Amaria's Call untapped to flash in Cathar Commando. No target. Play Hate in the Life. This takes me off of Seasoned Dungeoneer specifically. Rest down. That's real good. That removes these abilities. And I did deal 3 damage to myself, making Natural Storm easier. Okay. I don't have a 3rd mana to, like, nuke Dress Down, which is unfortunate. I guess that wouldn't work anyway, right? Another Infernal Tutor. Revealing Dark Ritual again. Dark Ritual. Thoughtseize me. Storm is 7. If my opponent casts a Tendrils right now, it's not lethal, right? So it's just 16. So I should not cast this Cathar Commando. Yeah, I should not cast this Cathar Commando. Shame Concession? Oh, that does it though. That little extra bit did it. If I don't shock here and I'm at 20 life, my opponent does not get a kill. It's 18. That is unfortunate. GG's. I am comfortable keeping this hand. We have a turn 1 Leon and God damn it. Just play a fetch land. Just play a fetch land when I lead on Leon and Arbiter, huh? How about it? Oh man, they high rolled. We're dead. Next game. Let's see how well they hit. Muxus and Broadside. Cool, cool, cool. Battlecry Goblin in play. I don't think I'm going to play a single card. I think I'm just going to concede. So I can Chromox, Imprint, Amarius Call, Lotus Petal, Plains, Archon. But the Battlecry Goblin means that every single one of those creatures, except the token that my opponent produces, just trade with the Archon. And as soon as my opponent draws a land to play that Broadside, I think the game is just over. So this is a case of, do I win this game a high enough percentage of the time to tell my opponent what sort of archetype I am on, or do I just concede? I think I just concede. It's very disappointing, but I think my opponent just came out of the gates too fast here, and I would rather not let them know how to sideboard. So chalices become swords. I think I did a canonist for a jailer. I just don't keep up with my opponent's deck. This is a matchup I just don't think my deck can win. Do I win if I turn 1 YOLO Archon with Solitude backup? This is really awkward because I just... Actually, I'm viewing it wrong. It's not Solitude backup, it's double Solitude backup. But, like, I guess I keep it. The hand attempts to do something unfair in that it can shut off my opponent's soul lands and also shut off sticker goblins. What a cheaty land. My opponent gets rid of a basic mountain, which is very good with Archon, though, so that's a thing. Alright. I've done my thing. These 4-drops aren't playable this game. Let's see if this gets there. Good sketch. Sure. That'll allow my opponent to power out some good stuff. Chromox is good. Then this. Opponent goes to 18. I think I play this as my 1 spell this turn. That if I draw a land, I can drop like a Palace Jailer potentially. Any land is Seasoned Dungeoneer though. I find myself in that same spot. I think I keep the removal density though. Some portion of the time it's just like a moot point. Alright, Rabblemaster has to eat a Solitude. So now it's just like, do I Solitude and pitch the Palace Jailer? I think so. It just sucks. I just keep them from establishing a board. This is the exact Palace Jailer scenario that I was talking about so many times in this league. This is rough. My opponent's not that far away from just like playing a tapped Ancient Tomb and then a Moxus. That's fine. That mana doesn't get used for anything. Yeah, but they can just hardcast a Moxus next turn. Are we playing this? I think so. Shuts off Matrons. Send it. It's really awkward that I have 5 mana, but the white pips of this are constrictive. Chromox. They're just playing that out for a future Broadside. So I think I'm just taking this Namesticker Goblin off the board, as sad as that is, so that I can continue to attack in. My opponent plays something like Broadside. I can top deck any white card to remove it. I think just keeping this Arbiter in play and allowing it to attack is kind of a big deal. 4 damage. Opponent's at 10. And I'm going to go ahead and play a Plains. I guess I'm not fully shutting off Matron. I'm just making it cost more. That's fine. Yeah, I guess I'll make this land drop. If my opponent plays Matron, they just very easily have enough mana to pay. That's fine. We have gotten very lucky here in one capacity or another. And it opponent is at 6. I think I just play a second Archon here and hold the Solitude until after my opponent plays a good creature. Well, we won with that hand. It wasn't pretty, and I feel like it was very variance-oriented, but we got there. I think this is round 4. I think I have never drawn a card off a Palace Jailer or cast a Palace Jailer. Very telling. So this is just a removal hand, where I try to like Swords to Plowshares a Sticker Goblin. I am not excited by this, but I've got like 2 lands, 2 removal spells, 2 creatures. Once mulliganing to 4. So you're telling me there's wow to 3? I don't even know what you're looking for at 3. Just like soul land, red land, broadside or something like that. Yep. So I think I play an Arbiter this turn. I think I can drop Swords to Plowshares after my opponent mulligans that deeply. And then this fully just shuts off. Oh, okay. They are lacking in the mana department. I think this is fine. Let's just continue to deploy threats. And then from here, unless I top deck just an absolute banger of a 3-drop, I probably hold up Swords. Sure, that's a tapped land. Yeah, so let's ship in for 4. When it's at 14, we'll play one of these tapped. I've got Swords to Plowshares or like a Sticker Goblin or something that's played out. There it is. I could just flicker it. That mana at their end step doesn't really do them any good. I think that's better, and I save the Swords. Although I don't get to attack for 4. Yeah, I have changed my mind. Let's just Swords it. That is a lot of Amaria's Call. Let's keep clocking. So this time around, I don't have good instant speed interaction available. I've got an Oblivion Ring or a Broadside or something that's played out. Oh no, do you just have Muxus after all that? Yep, and Muxus is a reveal. So they can hit high here and effectively win the game on the spot. Yep. Cool. Yeah, so my opponent just like makes a token, attacks me for 2, throws the token at an Arbiter, and I'm effectively dead. Cool. Well, they missed throwing a token. It probably doesn't matter because their board is so strong. I think I have to cast this and remove Broadside. That just invalidates my blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Am I trying to survive until I cast this as a actual spell? I might be. So like now we just see how smartly my opponent plays combat. The City of Traders. Do you just have another Muxus or something? Did you throw away that land for nothing? Right? Like, isn't it better to just attack? And then you also pump the tokens, and you just had 4 mana anyway. I'm still just dead. If I take these blocks. Oh wait, no. 10, 13, 14. I take 15 and go to 2. Yeah, aren't I just like deterministically dead this turn if my opponent does combat math? Yep, I am. I think this is the way that sets me up to potentially win by top decking well. But it's rough. That's not really what I needed. I can play Arbiter followed by Archon. No, block, dead. Yeah. So my opponent missed lethal, threw away a land, mulligan to 3, and won anyway because this deck is so good. Okay. Hand is very obviously a keep. I think I lead on Chalice on 1 rather than Archon. if I lead on Archon, like, my mana is just awkward. Whereas if I lead this way, I can do turn 1 Chalice, turn 2 Archon, turn 3 Palace Jailer, and I have a reasonable curve. Chalice is, like, definitely the worst card here. That is great. Now I don't lose a land. This could get dazed. Cats are losing their damn minds. Drop. It is a daze. That's fine. Like, my opponent will be back in the spot. Okay, they're just casting a Brainstorm into a Chalice, specifically to make a Murktide Regent more castable later. Something that I've talked about a lot is the fact that, like, Chalice of the Void doesn't actually win you games versus Delver, because you just, like, still lose to an eventual Murktide Regent. So here I've got a choice. I can just play Palace Jailer into a daze and hope that the cards that I draw end up winning me this game and being able to beat a Murktide Regent, or I can save this for a Murktide Regent. I think I need to just jam this card. Like, I don't have any other good play. If I had any other play for the turn, I wouldn't play this Palace Jailer. But I think I need to just... Oh. That was unexpected. Okay. Urza's Saga, Life from the Loam, is real good versus Chalice. What the fuck is my opponent playing? That's what I want to know. This is what happens when your deck is half mana. This sort of thing does happen sometimes. Urza Saga is incredibly good versus my Palace Jailer. I'm fine as long as I draw another relevant card. Thank you, deck. Very cool. I can still draw a Solitude at end of turn. Let's play this Lotus Petal out as well. I'm not going to attack. Holding Monarch is super important. Sure. Yeah, you make your dude. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can just cast it. Which I will do. Oh, there's Phyrexian Dreadnought. Missed that getting milled over. Okay, so my opponent is some sort of like... Fuck. Yeah. And my opponent replays Saga, equips Shadow Spear, and becomes the Monarch. That is frustrating. I mean, I take it right back, and hopefully I can just hold it this time. But if my opponent has, like, Force of Will, it's a bit disastrous. Take your card. They do have to discard. Solitude's good. Send in for 2, become the Monarch back. Opponent's at 17. I think I just cast the Amaria's Call. Take 2 off Ancient Tomb. Alright, it does resolve. I can also potentially just pitch cast a Solitude. Oh, that's currently good as well. Or no, you currently cost 3. Don't have a legendary creature. It's not bad. Just make the non-angels. Yeah, so this is currently indestructible. Sure. My opponent could make it lose indestructible and then kill it. Oh no. Okay, that makes me have to pay 7 mana for this Solitude, which is probably fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. So this is 5, 6, 7. That leaves me with 3 mana to Aganjo afterwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Okay. And Aganjo is 4 damage, so even with the Shadow Spear, it's fine. All right, do this. Solitude. Target the construct. Will pay. So I just attack with the Palace Jailer, right? Because if my opponent blocks, I just Aganjo it now, and I kill it now rather than later. And if they don't block, I do some bonus damage. Cool. We Aganjo that. I need to check on the cats. Alright, they are playing with a toy. They are not murdering each other. That's good. Sure sounds like they were murdering each other. They are dredging Life from the Loam. I don't really know if they have time for this, just with these angel tokens in play. Alright, they went into the tank for a minute and ultimately conceded. So we're playing against what looks to be a Bant Stifle Knot deck that also is Life from the Loaming Urza Saga. So I want Swords to Plowshares, I want Cathar Commando and Lauren as ways to blow up Phyrexian Dreadnoughts. My initial read on Murktide Regent might have been wrong, by the way. Rick Proctor is going to be really fucking good against my deck. So that's a thing. Chalice of the Void is going to go because I'm going to play Swords to Plowshares in this matchup. Beyond that, like, what are my worst cards? The Arbiters? The Arbiters are good versus fetch lands, but pretty weak on the draw. Do I Rest in Peace? Like, is Rest in Peace potentially stopping, like, Life from the Loam and Uro good? Alright. The Arbiters are going. That puts me here. I'm looking at Court of Grace and Rest in Peace with my remaining slots, and to a much lesser extent, I'm looking at Thalia. So, it is hard for me to beat Urza Saga Life from the Loam a lot of the time. How good is Archon? What if I do this? This is 60. And the plan is just remove my opponent's threats. Don't let them Life from the Loam Urza Saga me into oblivion. Mulligan. Okay. Get rid of a city. Don't have a good turn 1 play. Anointed Peacekeeper on Urza Saga is pretty respectable, though. Apt Mystic Sanctuary. Maybe not what my opponent is hoping for. What's going on over there, huh? What you got? We've got the fetch in response. And a Brainstorm to hide the goodies. I'm probably just going to name Urza Saga. Uh-huh. There are Uros in the deck. Opponent is not oh no, there is green mana. I kinda just want to name Life from the Loam. Let my opponent spend their turn prismatic ending-ing my Anointed Peacekeeper. Rather than continuing to make land drops and just taking a little bit of damage. Let's name that Loam. I think my cat is currently participating in the ooh, yeah. So that kind of, in the short term, stops my Solitudes, but not in the long term. Also, I can just Swords to Plowshares this Phyrexian Dreadnought, and, like, we're good with that. A Lotus Petal is reasonable. Just Swords the 12/12. Just Swords the 12/12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would need 2 more mana. 1, 2, 3, I guess 4, 5, 6. I can just evoke if I need to. I'm gonna evoke a Solitude on Strict Proctor in response to them casting another Dreadnought. That sounds good. And it's a 2 for 2. Yep. So Solitude. Itchamaria's Call. Get rid of that. Okay, so this first one is for this ability. I'll pay for that. This other one is going towards the evoke. I don't pay for that. And that just means that I get to keep my Solitude. Then my opponent loses their Dreadnought. And this Life from the Loam is currently expensive. They don't get to prismatic ending my creature here. Got a lot of life to go through. This is kind of the point of the game where I would love a Monarch card or an initiative card to just, like, ride some advantage while I tempo my opponent by removing their stuff. Swords happens. And my opponent gets to start doing Life from the Loam nonsense. I don't think I get to just cast Solitude and attack with it. Like, my opponent can play 12/12 creatures. I have to respect the creatures that they can produce. I think even with 2 of them in hand, I don't play another one. Like, I don't really want to prolong this game or anything, but I don't know, maybe when they cast the first Uro. Sure, that's fine. Another Dreadnought. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With any mana source, I can like keep both of these, but I probably just pitch cast one and then be clocking them for 6. Slightly awkward. Exile Strict Proctor again. Pay for this one. Next one is targeting the evoke, so I don't pay for that one. To keep my solitude. This does mean that I don't currently have a plan for Uro. Hopefully that's fine. Send him. Opponent's at 15. I'm at 30 something. I guess it's not the end of the world if I take a couple of Uro hits. Alright. There is the Uro. They took a real draw, not a dredge. So they've got blue, blue, green, green. Retrofitter Foundry is some chump blockers. Archon is not what I'm looking for at this stage of the game. We're looking for another exile-based removal spell. I could, like, multi-block an Uro or something. No dredge. I used both the Gonjos. No, right? I could just, like, hit in a Gonjo. And that would be cool. Untapped land. Basic. I don't get to play another spell. How do we feel about this? Feels like it's happening. This is a few turns later than I would like it to be, though. Got a plains. Play a plains. I'm going to hit with Archon. Still. Note that Seasoned Dungeoneer triggers off of Cleric, Rogues, Warriors, Wizards. Opponent's at 12. Oh, an end of turn brainstorm is very good. Like, squeezing that spell in around Archon is huge. Very lucky to have just the untapped basic island for Archon. We're F6'd for whatever my opponent can do here. The prismatic ending is not that scary. I can triple block Uro and always kill Uro and just be like holding the initiative. And that's like okay. There is a dredge and another Uro. If my opponent plays a pre-combat spell, I can safely just double block with Solitudes. Alright. Scroll of Fate. That's the manifest thing that is reasonable with Dreadnought. I think I have to triple block this Uro. Actually, how bad is it if I give my opponent the initiative? Like, they get a basic. I just crack them back for 11. Realistically, I probably crack them back for 9. Okay, you get the initiative. I've changed my mind. Sure. Like, the most annoying thing is that I don't get to Lost Well before my attack step, which is a thing that I really, really, really wanted to do. Finding exile-based removal is so strong right now. That's their one spell. Lauren blows up Retrofitter Foundry. That's reasonable. I guess I don't attack with Archon. I guess my opponent could Strict Proctor and Retrofitter Foundry block. I guess let's do this pre-combat. Target the Retrofitter Foundry. The life is fine. I'll keep the Lotus Petals. Alright. They make a 1/1. So my opponent could double block, but if I kill a Strict Proctor, I think I'm just good with that happening. Let's explore Swords of Plowshares. I will not put that into my graveyard. I am perfectly happy with that as an answer to Uro. More accurately, it's an answer to one of the Uros. Right, they're not going for double blocks. They're just going to save 2 life. We're going to do a chump. That's reasonable. So now that I know I have swords on top, I don't need to Lost Well anymore, and I can probably just forge. Probably forge the flyer. I want to diversify so that my opponent finding a Swords to Plowshares for Seasoned Dungeoneer isn't just a massive tempo blowout. Alright, so Uro comes crashing in. I can just jump block with Lauren if I would like to not give my opponent a scry 2 on a critical turn. So my opponent is realistically what? At 14 life if they play another Uro. As of right now, they're at 11. I have 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 already. Not counting Trap, I think I will just go ahead and chump block with Lauren and not give them the scry. I guess my opponent could Prismatic Ending Archon. I'm still good, right? So that's their one spell. They take this out. I swords this. They're at 12, 4, 7, 10, 15. I think we're good. Opponent does not have double white. Right, they're just going for another Uro. Ah, lol, lol, lol. They're going to counter their own life gain trigger. Essentially just untapping an Uro for their mana. Yeah, and they don't have the mana to pay for it. Tapped Wasteland. So let's trap my opponent. They are at 6. If I source the Plowshares Uro, they are at 12. I have 4. I have 10. If I remove this, I just have to like think about whether or not they have Source the Plowshares. Like they've left up white. They might. Like if I attack with everything and they have swords, this gets swordsed. This gets blocked. My opponent blocks this, takes 6. I might need to just swords the Uro and just be able to attack with everything. Like I think longer term, I'm still winning this even if I give them this life. I will not put that into my graveyard. Yeah, so this is 11 damage, putting them to 1. I have 4 creatures on board with Palace Jailer on the top of my deck. I think we're good. All right. Opponent was not happy with how they played there. They were a little bit nervous in this one, but kind of as I was typing to them, like we just have so much white removal, especially counting the artifact destruction stuff for the Dreadnoughts, that it's a very tough matchup for them to actually stick a meaningful threat. So how do we feel about this one? We won for the league. A big portion of that is just like the Sticker Goblin matchup is horrendous. Like, Chalice is bad in that matchup. Arbiter is bad in that matchup. Peacekeeper is too slow in that matchup. Touch is probably too slow in that matchup. The 4-drops are too slow in that matchup. So, like, the only thing that's keeping up with them is, like, Solitude and Archon of Emeria. And we played against Sticker Goblins multiple times. They're, like, with Sticker Goblins and Broadsides being as much as they are in the metagame, just, like, doing something that looks like this is probably not viable. I will say our other matchups were pretty close. Like, this is not a 1-4 where I just got my ass kicked just with no recourse. Like, I played Magic in all of my rounds, but until the final round where my opponent's deck was just like very slow and kind of bad against my overall strategy, we never got to resolve a Palace Jailer. There just was not time. Yeah, once it did resolve, and like riding that Monarch high was very, very, very good. I'm very happy with the changes I made from the initial deck list. Like the Ghostly Prison Suppression Field stuff, I think was much worse than like the Lotus Petals, Arbiters, Touch the Spirit Realms that I added. I'm happy with those changes. Sideboard options felt pretty strong. Very happy in particular that I added the 4 Swords to Plowshares. So I think this is a good version of a white initiative / Monarch deck. I'm happy with what I put together, but I don't think this general strategy lines up very well versus the metagame right now. So recommended for a local metagame where you don't have Sticker Goblins, but probably not recommended too much for Magic Online. But if you do need those cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your next order. Folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. I think I need to go take a shower. I've got like some wicked bedhead going on that I've got to solve. Anyway, see ya.